today is such an interesting day. This is the largest drop in Bitcoin price I think I've ever seen. Maybe not percentage wise, but in dollar terms, the largest drop I've ever experienced. And I can't help but just feel more excited. Bull markets, like they have a certain type of anxiety, but bear markets, bring us back to what's actually important. I actually think that's why we have them. If we don't have price drops, obviously things would just be exponential and it wouldn't make any sense. It's impossible. But more than that, it's funny that we're in an industry that is 100% about money. We're inventing a new type of currency. And yet I think the lesson for the industry is that it's not about money, that we're here to build technology, freedom technologies. And bear markets really bring that to the fore. Right? The people that are on this call today are the people that haven't left, right? Because they're actually building. And who knows why Bitcoin is dropping? It doesn't matter, because if you understand the technology, you understand that it's not going anywhere. And the same thing for Bittensor, really. I've been doing like over 100 calls of the last month or so with the teams on Bittensor, and every single one that I've spoken to is just killing it. It makes no sense that the price will be where it is. It makes absolutely no sense because, I talked to the teams. Who was I speaking to? I was speaking to Numinous yesterday, and they're lost in the sauce in the sense that they're deeply involved in their technology, and they forgot to mention that they have the best predictive agent in the world. And there's a lot of subnets on Bittensor that have something similar to say. Best predictive agent in the world, best 3D modeling, best web scraping, best weather prediction. Bittensor works really, really well. Incredibly well. It's working incredibly well right now across all verticals, and it just gets better, exponentially better from one day to the next. And so that's really all that we need to think about. We have here up on stage some fantastic builders, some that have been here for a very long time, some not so long, but each one of them an incredible engineer led by John Durbin from Chutes, which is the top subnet on Bittensor in a variety of ways. A team that I've worked for, John Never Sleeps. I worked with John Never Sleeps. And, Affine, the subnet I've been building of late, is also built on top of Chutes. And so, John, I want us to talk pretty high level in this conversation. Like this is a seminal novelty search in 2026. It's the first one for us. And where do you want to start? There's so many things since we last had you up on stage.
Yeah, I guess, what was it, like February probably? Yeah, a lot has happened since then. Yeah, I think we registered on, was it December 21st of 24? So we're just over a year old now. And one of the things we wanted to do with Chutes is sort of bring Bittensor into the broader AI community. And so, the first thing we had to do is basically build a system that would meet the AI world kind of where they are, right? And the easiest way to do that is basically inference and compute. And, so the first step was basically proving that it could be done. When we launched, we offered all the models for free. Targon had some for free as well. And, we used that sort of to gain some traction and get listed on OpenRouter and things like that. So, first step was, can we even build the thing, and does it work? And, we proved, yes, it does work. And actually, we proved it so well that we became, as far as I know, the biggest open source model provider in all of OpenRouter. I mean, at our peak, when everything was still free, we did, on our top day, something like 160 billion tokens, which is just a massive number. I mean, And that was all Bittensor. It was all permissionless miners, decentralized network. Everything just worked, and it was magical. And then, of course, we had to get to the point where, okay, well, now we've proven that it can work, but now we need to actually make it sustainable. And so starting, I think our first day of actually having any revenue at all was March 8th. And I think our total revenue for that day was like $200 or something. And it's been a long slog from there. Lots of ups and downs. Lots of market fluctuations, let's say. And like you said, these bear markets are sort of a stress test, but it really makes us focus on achieving that goal of sustainability even faster. And so we're continuing down our mission of basically bringing AI, bringing Bittensor into the broader community, general purpose compute, inference, the best, most clear, open source, definitive, secure inference on the planet, basically between the TEE stuff and having our entire stack be open source. And pumping all of that money just back directly into the ecosystem, so that we can actually build a flywheel that can maintain indefinitely and eventually hopefully become fully autonomous. Yeah, so I don't want to talk too much because we have just a ton of like high level overview stuff that everyone wants to talk to. We have Algawari is going to be talking about sort of our revenue numbers, our partnerships, subscription growth, all that kind of stuff. Continuing down the path of like sort of meeting people where they are. We're going to be talking about sandboxes and providing secure CPU only compute services and building basically easy ways for people to use the existing tools that they already have, like Claudebot or OpenClaw or Moltbot, whatever you want to call it, stuff like that. And one of our largest use cases is role playing. The numbers are basically coding and role play is 90% of our traffic, something like that. And Complex here has built an amazing product that we're going to showcase there as well. So yeah, I don't know, just a ton of stuff. And I'm going to stop talking because people have heard me too much.
There's another angle here too, which I hope you go over, John, which is how much of Bittensor is built on Chutes.
Yeah, I think that's one of the major focuses that Algawari is going to be talking about here. I don't know if he wants to dox himself or not, but
hey, how's it going?
But yeah, it's amazing, and that's one of the key things about Chutes is like it's not just providing compute. I mean, we have a ton of additional, specifically built mechanisms in place to help the subnets achieve what they want to achieve, whether it's blocking network connections except for specifically whitelisted domains so that you can have like video downloads but still offline predictions, custom validation so people don't just embed entire data sets into their model weights or something like that with trust remote code to extract the answer. I mean, we build a lot of solutions into Chutes to make sure that all the subnets that would like to use Chutes are successful without having to do all that legwork themselves. But yeah, definitely something we're going to talk about here shortly.
Thank you, John, just for the brief introduction. I go by Algawari around here. Ty as well is my first name. So I'm just going to give a little intro here. You can see on Vate screen just our little slide cards, but just a quick outline of some of our revenue trends and then some introduction into kind of the sales side where we've been working with some new clients and integrating new aggregators and providers to work with Chutes to get our models out to the general public in a variety of ways. Some of the projects that we've engaged with, and then as you mentioned, our cross-subnet integrations and how we're functioning within Bittensor as a whole. So just to begin with, you should see on Vate screen there, we just got a nice chart, just kind of show our overall revenue growth from beginning to now. So it's kind of gone through about 3 phases that we've sort of broken it down to. So our initial phase, starting from March when monetization was first enabled, up until about June of 2025, was pretty small, low daily revenue, but building. So we're looking at $100 to $500 days. A lot of most models were free still at this point, but we were starting to move towards monetization, subscriptions, and pay-go. Then from there, we started to ramp up from about June to August. It was of 2025. Got a lot more growth there, running more subscribers and more medium tier and enterprise style pay-go clients. So we jumped up a bit there. We started having more like $6,000 to $11,000 days by the end of that period. And then recently, around September, we did a payment system migration, and along with that, it was when we really started to mature into larger scale daily revenue. So from that point, we've been in the $9,000 to $20,000 a day revenue category. Yesterday, we hit, I think, 22,000 for a single day, which was a peak for us, which is great. Of that revenue from just the last 90 days, we've got a total revenue of 1.3 million. It's probably a little bit higher than that based on the way everything's reporting, but right in that realm. And of that, it just purely from subscription and fiat pay as you go, we're looking at around 441,000 from just consumer side, and then from enterprise, like business to business enterprise clients that we've got onboarded is right around 378,000. So cash for the last 90 days, just USD is in that 800,000 range. So obviously very happy with that. Growth is moving really well. So sorry, I thought I heard something about to talk. Let me just keep going. So and then just for something a metric that we came up with and we're actually very proud of at this point is that our revenue currently is accounting for roughly 30 to 40% of our daily expenses in outgoing, which depending on your perspective on the market, can seem either good or bad. But in generally speaking, for a new business like ours, with the growth that we're experiencing, is a pretty incredible thing. And when you compare it to a provider like OpenAI, for example, their average yearly is about 20 billion income, but their yearly outgoing is about 1.4 trillion. So they're looking at about 1.5% of their expenses are covered by revenue. So the fact that we're able to cover 30 to 40% already in just a year is something we're very proud of. So definitely.
Yeah, let me just clarify one little thing there. What we mean by that, I guess, is our first revenue goal is to fully offset all minor emissions, and that means we're covering like 40% of all minor emissions, whether it's sold or not is irrelevant. We're trying to make sure all of the emissions for miners are fully offset by revenue. So even if some of that is held, the goal is all of it. So that's kind of what we mean there by that number.
Right. Sorry for any confusion there, but that is exactly that's what I mean. But we're trying to.
And just if you don't mind if I jump in here, just put some color on this, because since the beginning of DTAO, there's actually been some debate around the way in which you should see minor emissions. And John and your crew have been on the team of don't burn, even though you're paying them too much, right? You could have burnt them down to X percentage, so they made nothing above what they made in mining. But you saw it as actually distributing it out to your community, and that they didn't have to sell that, and they would just become aligned. Is that like a bit of a prompt there for you? But like, how do you see that?
Well, the way I look at it is very much like an investment. Like if you were to do a Web 2 company and give out shares in a company, you wouldn't necessarily expect the employees to immediately go liquidate all of those. Maybe they can, if they're not reserved stock options or something like that, they could just immediately go liquidate them. But in theory, your employees, if we treat miners like part of the company, because they are, I mean, they run the whole product. If we treat miners like they're, employees of the company and part of the team, you want to let them make that investment decision themselves, right? And so It's sort of ownership in the company, if you want to look at it that way, right? It's ownership in the subnet. What you choose to do with it is sort of up to you. But the way I look at it is someone who is just casually buying, subnet alpha tokens. That's great and wonderful, and we appreciate that. But if someone is actually, working 8, 10, 12-hour days, managing infrastructure, finding deals, fixing problems with, disks when they go bad, whatever the case may be. If these people are spending time actually optimizing the platform and helping us with bug reports and doing all this kind of stuff, they are the best investors we could possibly have. And I would rather give the extra alpha, even if it's, quote unquote a waste or, excess, whatever. They're part of the team, and they should be able to do whatever they want with, like, the protocol was designed in a particular way. And I don't see why we would do anything other than reward the participants with the heaviest engagement in that way. Yeah, I don't know.
I wanted to say too, other than like when Tau was, like 3 times higher than what it is now, a lot of the excess, or I guess waste you could say, wasn't necessarily like a ton of waste. When miners are getting paid out like 5 times what they're paying, then yeah, you're wasting money there. But I think it's important for subnets on Bittensor to not just focus on the best value for their token, right? If you have to burn a huge percentage of your network, you're not really running much of a network there. You have to put a heavy hand on it, and you have to control, the direction it's going. And a lot of the emission is kind of pointless to your miners. Like, it's not a reward for them. It's more just speculation on your asset. So I think it's important that, we aren't trying to burn, like 90% or something, but rather we're trying to look for more ways to make our existing emission more efficient.
Complex, were you're on the team of Chutes right now?
Yeah.
Were you initially?
No. So initially, so initially I helped with some of the security stuff on Graval, the GPU validation. I've known John for probably like a decade now, and he got me into Bittensor and brought me into this community, and then he told me he was doing a subnet. I wasn't really too interested at the time, but watching it grow and wanting to become more involved, we kind of worked out what I could work on and what I could bring to it.
How many of the people that work on Chutes, John, were first miners, now they're holders, now they're community members, and now they participate in building everything inside the ecosystem?
Yeah, I couldn't venture to guess. I mean, I could say for our team that Complex and the two dudes, Florian, I sort of Bittensor pilled. He was not really in Bittensor or crypto or anything. He was just sort of more in the AI space, and then I derailed his entire life trajectory, I guess, with Bittensor. And then
yes, that's a good way.
Yeah,
I love it.
And then paper money. Let's see. I don't think you did you do any sort of crypto stuff before? I mean, we worked at a company together in the past, so I knew him through sort of real life. But and
zero crypto any experience before.
Yeah, so we've got a bit of a mix here, but I would say, in general, I would say a lot of the subnets, and even if it's not necessarily subnet ownership and stuff like that, but like direction of subnets comes from miners for sure. Because they're in it day in and day out. So we're always adapting from miner feedback personally, at Chutes, and I can see that through the ecosystem as well.
And it's easy to forget because it seems so long ago that a lot of the subnet owners on Bittensor today were first miners of the original mechanisms on Bittensor, who are now subnet owners who have miners that are part of their teams and so forth. You
I
can't
started
see
on Noose, right? Noose Research Subnet 6, way back in the day. But I wasn't as early as like Rob on when there was only one subnet and stuff like that. So I was a little bit of a late joiner in that sense.
I'll go worry. I've completely derailed you as usual. It's not Novelty Search without derailing. As you were saying, about 30 to 40%, just to give people context on what that means when you said like minor emission versus revenue here. So this is 40% of minor emission.
Correct. Right. So currently, and in our recent trend, we're hitting around that number, between 30 and 40% daily of minor emissions. So our objective is
today it'll be higher with the
And
largest
what do you
drop
know-
in history.
right.
And what do you know about the capital costs there? So how much are you overpaying miners? So you're making 40%. You're paying miners 100%. How much are they selling? 60%?
That's a good question. I don't actually. Let me see.
We don't track that, but I assume, like, our assumption is basically that number can be 100% and we shouldn't care. I mean, that's kind of our operating guideline is we should assume that 100% of that is going to expenses. Now, most of our, well, I don't want to say most, a lot of our hardware is actually just from idle compute from data centers. So to them, I mean, there are times, if you look at the entire, inventory of nodes, there are times where we're only paying something like 70 cents an hour for an H200. Surely that is lower than the
Which is half
cost of, yeah, I
right?
mean, even just the cost of electricity to run those things.
Right.
So, we try to make it as frictionless as possible, and we're working on like standalone VMs that data centers can just like pixie boot into whenever they have idle capacity. We're going to try to make it as frictionless as possible so that you literally just do nothing. Your machine goes idle, you spin up a VM, you need it back, you advertise to us that you're done with it, and you spin it back down. And then, even if we're paying at that point 10 cents per hour, it's still greater than zero, right? So,
Right.
and that's, sorry?
Sorry, John. No, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is we could try to really fine tune exactly how much hardware we have. And we do to a certain extent. We have, caps on the number of instances we allow per model. And we've been sort of steadily deleting underutilized models and sort of consolidating, older versions of models into just the newer ones. And we're constantly updating the engines to make them faster and better configs and stuff like this. So, we're continuously trying to drive down the required expense, but if we forced it to just that required expense, one thing that will happen is people won't want to put their idle compute on. And then if we have like a DeepSeek 4 come out, we just won't have the inventory to be able to launch it. So having some, like base level of idle compute is actually hugely important for us so that we can launch these new models when they come out and traffic will shift. If we're constantly like burning or fine tuning or limiting, capping in other ways, we just wouldn't have that flexibility. And these models get released, there's like at least a model a week. I mean, there's way more than that, but models of either image models, text to speech or LLMs, there's something new constantly. And so the cost there, I couldn't say because half of it's just idle that would be getting zero anyway. Yeah, I don't know.
And how about utilization? Like, if I run an H200 on Chutes, how much of the time will I be serving requests?
If it's an 8x H200 node, it will be almost certainly fully busy 24/7.
Yeah, almost constant, basically.
Wow. And so you're being paid for that, and then at the incentive level, you guys can optimize this, right? So you can build the incentives for the type of compute that is required, that makes the most amount of money. That is, but obviously you're trying to build a platform here where there's always uptime for things. But hypothetically, you could build this so that the incentive goes to exactly where it needs to be to have that compute online to service the most amount of requests that are making the most amount of money for Chutes. And it's just basically at this point, it's just an optimization problem.
Yeah, exactly. And we actually just rolled out a brand new incentive mechanism maybe like a month and a half ago or so. I don't know. Time just is an illusion to me at this point. But we rolled out a new mechanism where every single chute has a dynamic incentive. And what we mean by that is basically, there's only a certain amount of capacity that a particular model can serve before it starts. Either like the engine will just, your time to first token would be minutes, in which case no one would want to use it and all clients would eventually cancel their requests. There would be timeouts all over the place. It would just be a disaster. So we always have like hard caps on the number of concurrent requests any single node can handle. And that's usually somewhere between like 40 and 60, depending on the model. And so from that, we can track what the utilization of every single instance is at all times. And then we can also see whenever an instance is going beyond that and they have to start rejecting requests. And so what we do now is basically the incentive per instance is based on what the utilization is at the time. And if it goes above 80%, we start adding some incentive to it. So more miners will spin it up. And if it starts rate limiting, we really add incentive to it, because then it means we're not actually serving the capacity that is actually needed. The only other thing that we need to add into this formula is basically exactly what you said, which is to make it a revenue optimization problem, which is, say we have two competing models, both are at 100% capacity. One of them makes us, 1 penny per hour. One of them makes us $100 per hour. We should definitely be giving more incentive to the one that makes us more money. And we have all the back end means to do that. It's just not something we've done yet. Mostly at this point, we've been trying to, Florian has built some amazing tooling around, like he built a price optimizer for us that will, using actual metrics, give us what the input versus output price should be to make sure we're in the lead position on OpenRouter for routing preferences, and to make sure that we're actually going to be hitting whatever the instance cost would be, like in terms of like dollars per hour per GPU. So yeah, I mean, for us, it's all about fixing that problem. And when we see a model that no longer makes sense financially to run, either because it's idle or because it just doesn't have any profit margins, we just start reducing the overall capacity on that and try to get people to shift over to other things. But it's it's a shifting landscape, to be sure.
And it can be a tricky thing to do. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to point to the fact that, on the screen here we have OpenAI not able to cover its costs, its expenses 1.5%. It's losing money like crazy, I'm sure. Anthropic is also losing money like crazy, I'm sure. Basically, every inference provider in the world is losing money like crazy because it's over capitalized. But where this converges is to who can optimize the compute and optimize availability and utilization, right? Like that is actually, when you get to the full commodification of inference, that's all it is. Can you get every machine? Can it be available for inference at any time? And there's no better way to do it than direct incentive mechanisms. Right, if you're OpenAI, you go hire a BD development, they go get some compute from NVIDIA, and sure, that gives them their edge because they can shake hands. But eventually, are they optimizing that compute? Are they provisioning it as perfect as you guys are? And do you see the tech that you're building can leapfrog these companies in terms of efficiency?
Yeah, I mean, constant. There is one aspect that nobody's thinking about is like, I mean, those centralized companies, they're just like building huge data centers somewhere. Like they're building a huge data center as big as Manhattan somewhere in the US. And I mean, the US is like, it's half of the year it's winter and half of the day it's night. And they are centralized. They can't like run the inference from anywhere else. They've got their data center there. I mean, we've got miners all over the world, and like the cheapest excess energy there is like excess energy from renewable sources, like solar energy, wind energy. And so basically, we could even like, we're not sure about this, but we could even have this advantage that like we get less carbon emission and cheaper like energy costs because miners just go and rent machines wherever it's just like daylight and summer. So
You should
that's
be
like kind of
you
isn't
should be
that
mining
beautiful?
carbon credits. Yeah. hmm Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg built a Manhattan city-sized data center. You guys built one that spreads entirely over the entire. It spreads over the entire globe. It's a network, and it will be bigger because it doesn't have the limitations of needing to be into one state, completely destroying the energy usage of that location and being more efficient. I mean, this is where we're converging towards Bitcoin mining for inference. That's always been the goal for subnets, right? To get towards that commodification. It's harder because the commodities are more complex. They require a lot more overhead. They require a lot more validation, verification, distribution. But Chutes is one of those subnets, and there are a number now that are sort of approaching that fine line, between like the direct translation of energy into some, in this case, intelligence.
Yeah, that's the goal. And I mean, you should hear some of the stories from the miners where they found like crazy pricing on H200s by the Fukushima power plant because that it's like
Wow.
a forbidden zone and stuff. I don't know, like, but and to your point, I mean, if we can get the price of inference down to the actual watt hour price, that's sort of the goal, and that's basically what Bitcoin has done is with ASICs and stuff like this. We're trying to do that. And we still have a long ways to go, and there are other sort of more fundamental things like hopefully there will be a shift in the actual underlying architecture of these models, so it's not just exponential complexity with the context size. Like you can see Nemotron 3 is a good example where they have like a hybrid Mamba transformer architecture, so the model is super fast regardless of the context. And when we start seeing more things like that, I think sort of like the per watt pricing of inference is going to become more of a reality. And then you see chips like Cerebras and stuff like this with their actual ASICs for transformers. But I mean, those aren't really that flexible if the architecture were to shift. But yeah, that's definitely what we're doing. And I mean, that's what the miners are good at, right? Like, it's not our job to go find the cheapest GPUs on the planet and get that incentive and actually make a profit. We don't really care where you source your GPUs or how you get them or what the story is behind them. Provide us the compute and you'll get the incentive. So it's a nice problem that we don't have to solve. Because I can't even imagine the headache of trying to source like a massive data center. If I wanted to go buy 100,000 GPUs right now today, and a data center and have power and like it would be a nightmare. And Bittensor completely solves this.
And it's a uniquely human problem too, because if you see what's happened to OpenAI with NVIDIA, right? They just dropped a deal. You don't have to do that. You don't need to see the leather jacket. So we're collapsing here. This towards the commodification. we're in the end of this slide. We're probably going to talk about, here we go, subnet integrations that are new. That's fantastic. But how about on the other side of integration? Do you think that it's beneficial for Chutes to have subnets that mine Chutes? Does that make sense? Has it happened? Will it happen? Like, does Chutes collapse to using a commodity as compute, and then say Celium builds up and mines Chutes? I know that's not happening right now, but do you think that would happen?
I think it absolutely could happen. There are sort of two roadblocks, and they're not really roadblocks. I would say they're more just technical challenges to overcome. So fun problems to solve. But one of them is that we're trying to shift more and more towards exclusively TEE, which basically requires that it's a bare metal machine, and the subnets currently. I mean, yeah, I know that there was at least one that was sort of in the works, thinking about doing like fully bare metal. But that's something that could be done, and then TEE would just work because we would have one subnet that is responsible for getting TEE hardware, and then they could just run the VM. It doesn't matter what they do with that hardware. You could use it for other purposes. You could serve it to Basilica or whatever. But if you wanted to then run, so if we had a fully bare metal subnet that could just drop in the Chutes VM or whatever VM, the Targon VM, I mean, that could work, to be sure, and that would help.
So here's why I think that's interesting. I'm derailing you guys again. When you look at the compute subnets on Bittensor, the biggest problem they have is that they're basically paying their miners continuously, right? And they need to solve a delivery problem, a distribution problem. So they're a continuous, they're an always on market, and the demand is not always on. Same thing, same problem that you have, right? So you have continuous incentives, and you need always on providers. So that's why, for instance, always on customers. That's why subnets are great customers, right? And that's why pay per month is great for Chutes. But this is, and I've been trying to push the compute subnets to think about being providers to always on incentive mechanisms, because then they can basically distribute. Well, we have always on compute. We can give it to Chutes, who's going to pay us always on for inference. And those two things mesh well together. And then the subnets that are a level up, they have to solve the distribution problem for you, and so forth and so on.
Mm-hmm.
It all just becomes one incentive.
That is one of the things I think people have a misconception about Chutes is people just say, we're a compute subnet. And I mean, to a certain extent we are, to be sure, but we're really much more of, I would say, like a service provider, right? We build the entire orchestration, the monitoring, the failover, the auto scaling, the billing, the, single sign-on integrations. Like, we're very much a service provider, more so than just a compute provider. And having an integration, if there was a bare metal compute provider, would be perfect for us, because then, we can build our service on top of that. And it's still going to be up to the miners. The miners on Chutes, currently their problems to solve are basically sourcing hardware and then optimizing their strategy to make sure that they actually do meet the demand 24/7, right? And make it the most cost effective hardware they can for the needs at the time. So, for example, if we have a Chute that can either run on 4090s or A100s, it's like, sure, you could go use your A100 on that, but that's way more expensive than just using like a consumer GPU, because the Chute definition says I can run on consumer GPUs. You don't need to use an A100. So, there's a resource identification problem to solve, and then there's like a allocation of those resources problem to solve. And the allocation is sort of what the Chutes miners are meant to be doing, is like finding the cheapest suitable compute and scaling appropriately. So
let's continue. Let's talk traction. Where are we?
Sure. Yep. Here I am. So, and yeah, just to speak to what John was talking about too, with making sure the cards are allocated correctly. That's a lot of that's dictated through node selectors and how that's set up within shoot definitions, and uh, it can be based on. There are ways to optimize it from a user perspective as well. That's important when it comes to people deploying private shoots. That there are ways to optimize their node selectors so that they're getting the best price for their shoot deployment, and they're also making sure they're not wasting a higher level compute that isn't necessary. So it's already something that's considered and in play. But so just to continue on with the from the traction point of view here, we've been working with some new providers, and obviously with the deployment of our TE infrastructure, which Paper Money can get a lot more into the details of how it functions in its back end. But a lot of interest has come because of that. And so a few aggregator services that we started working with, one in particular, Red Pill AI, is a security focused aggregator. So we've engaged with them, and they're going to be offering our TE models, and we're trying to bring Chutes to the broader market, even though within Bittensor, it's amazing the way that we're able to integrate with all the other subnets. And I'll show them again. Some of these are some of the most recent ones that we started integrating with, but we have a whole list that we're in partnership with. But another aspect is trying to get out to the broader market that isn't aware, and make them aware of Bittensor and make them aware of Chutes. And so through these aggregators is one of the ways we've been doing that. Also, kind of on a neat project side, for anybody who's into gaming, Pax Astoria is a client that we've recently started working with. They're really neat. It's like for anybody who's played Risk, it's very much like Risk, but AI powered. So it's a real-time strategy map game where you pick a country that you control, and all of the other countries that surround you are powered by LLMs. So when you make political or militaristic decisions against those nations, the LLM responds to combat you or whatever. And it's a really neat use case for these models that kind of differs from our typical bread and butter, which is the coding and the role playing. It's just really neat working with them, and they're integrating our models into like a certain tier of their product. So they've been really cool, great team, nice guys to work with, and just encourage anybody to check that out if you're into that kind of game.
And why do they want to work with you guys?
Well, we host a nice open source model. Previously they've been working exclusively with closed source models with Google Gemini Flash, and a bit with some of the OpenAI models. And actually, we discovered them just through general research. I found them and I reached out to them, and they were another one where they weren't really aware of our existence or the Bittensor ecosystem at all. And so from speaking to them and showing them how it worked and what we had available, they were very intrigued, and they were interested in the whole idea. They liked the decentralization of it because uptime is important to them. And so, we have the benefit that because we're decentralized, we don't usually face, like, if a data center goes down, it may partially take out some models some of the time, but they usually recover really quickly, and it's basically impossible for us to fully go down because of that decentralization, which is a hallmark of the fact that we're on Bittensor. So that was very appealing to them. And then some of the models, just the open source models that are evolving. In particular, they're very interested in one of the newer Xiaomi models, the Xiaomi Mimo V2 Flash. Is a quick model that really handles the way they use an LLM in this environment. Works really well, and it was actually benchmarking and comparing very close to the Gemini 2.5 Flash that they were using as their baseline. And from testing and stuff, they were like, wow, this actually works really well. And so, and also from a pricing standpoint, Chutes has great pricing when it comes to accessibility for these models, and from being able to work with them on an enterprise level, we can assist them in what they want, tuning it to meet their customers and their needs. And so it kind of just worked out. There was a good partnership option there, and we made it happen. So and they're in beta testing right now. We just finished the agreement earlier this week, and they should be launching the fully available Chutes aspect of the game like next week is what we're targeting. So, but it's in the works. So, and then let me move on to the next step here. So the next one here. So just as you were talking about earlier, some of our cross-subnet collaborations and who we're working with. Obviously, Affine is one of our biggest partners, and from a communications and customer service side, I work with Affine miners pretty much every day. Awesome guys and super smart individuals, and always. No, honestly, I deal with them constantly because along with sales, I also do a lot of like communications and customer support and specifically shoot support for shoots. So helping with private shoot deployments and troubleshooting to try and take some of the load off of our higher end devs. That's a place I've found myself and I love doing it. And so the Affine miners are always trying to find new ways to deploy models and get them set up and running in there. And so it's always an interesting challenge, like where something went wrong, how can we move it? And there's always that awesome experience of like, yes, we finally got it hot, and they're stoked. And so it's fun. It's a rewarding form of customer service I actually really enjoy doing. So but yeah, so I deal with Affine guys all the time. Score is another subreddit that we deal with regularly, where I speak to their miners a lot from predictions, because both of those subnets focus on deploying private shoots. So we're helping them with deployments. And then some of our other subnets use inference or in different ways, like Gradients does tuning and training of models, but then they'll deploy on shoots to test those models. And there's intentions there. We're looking to move forward with them to help it be a bit more accessible, so that as they train models, they can quickly deploy them to shoots to test them right away. So we're working on something with that team there that we've been talking about, and it's sort of been on the burner for a while. It needs to be followed up on, but we're moving. And then new ones too, like just platform, we just introduced with them recently. They're a new subreddit that just came around this week, but they introduced something that John put together that's a super useful tool in general, is the sign in with Chutes, which the guys can mention more in a bit, but I'll give a brief outline of it. It's an OAuth system that allows you to build Chutes into an app, so that you can, so a Chutes user with a subscription can log into that app with their Chutes credentials and bring their inference package with them to power whatever your app is. So from app builder, from a developer perspective, the upfront inference costs of developing an AI-based app can be very expensive and prohibitive, especially in the early stages. So this is a really nice way for you to build a product that needs AI without having to necessarily foot the whole bill off the bat. You can integrate Chutes there, and then a user can get a subscription with us and bring that to there and run it. And so Platform has integrated it into their system, and will be using it in the near future to help their miners. They'll be able to use inference to power their miners. So, and they're one of the first subnets to integrate we've also had a few apps integrated already that I'm aware of, and plenty, I'm sure, that don't reach out and tell us that they're using it, but that are actually using it. So it's a new offering there, but it's been very cool and working well. So yeah.
It's a cliche to say that, pressure creates diamonds, and the incentive mechanism from Affine has driven, I'm sure, stress test so much of Chutes. And like, just a point here about like what we've got from using Chutes, right? So in V0 Bittensor, if you were making a subnet and you wanted to do inference, provide us a miner, provide us a model, I would be black box. And there was just too many degrees of freedom, right? So they could pass that through and serve OpenAI. They could run 10 models and a mixtures model. They could do lookup. They could do all sorts of different things. And so when we were building Affine, we were one of the first subnets to build on Chutes. And we did it because Chutes allows us to have a whole bunch of amazing qualities for building incentive mechanisms. So like one of them is we can make the miners pay for us querying them, which is fantastic. So Chutes provides this, right? So while we're validating your model, they need to provide the cost for that verification. We can see the model weights, right? We can see which Hugging Face commit is associated with the model, which allows us to make the competition open source, which makes it that much faster, much more competitive, and faster moving. And like the whole infrastructure of the inferencing is solved by the miners on Chutes, which are experts in that, right? So our miners don't need to be experts in inferencing; they can just be experts in fine tuning. Now, of course, they've become experts in exploiting Chutes, but that's been patched. And as a consequence, but you know, it seems negative at first, but I'm so pro exploit because as a consequence, Chutes is probably 1,000 times harder, right?
I would agree. Yeah.
Right? Like
I
every
yeah, no, I
aspect.
think it.
Go ahead.
Oh,
No, you
sorry. I thought you were pausing. No, I was just gonna say, I think it's really valuable for us to have to solve these issues that other subnets are having, because normally when you're a subnet, you're just focusing on how people are going to cheat your subnet. In our situation, we have to focus on how people are going to use our subnet legitimately to cheat other subnets. And so it's kind of like an interesting security perspective for us to take, but I think it leads to more confidence with anyone using our service.
Yeah, you guys previously just had to deal with the miners. You solved that. Now you have to deal with the customers.
Yeah, we the amount of black hat stuff that happens to Chutes is it's insane. Like and actually it's one of the benefits, I guess, of using Chutes. Like, for example, in December, I think it was December anyway, or maybe part of November into December, out of 30 days, we had 24 days where we were getting DDoS attacked. And you know, half the time it's because, you know, miners on one particular subnet may be trying to DOS a particular model that's used for validation, for example, right? So like they may capture a high score and then they try to DOS the rest of the rest of Chutes to prevent the validators from running properly, or you know, people finding little bugs in like the most recent thing was basically you could modify the cache as a Chutes miner. You could modify the cache, and two particular files weren't part of our cache validation system. And we would have never known this were it not for, you know, these affine miners finding like these tiny little loopholes. And you know, I'm sure it's frustrating to you as an affine, you know, dev, but it's great for us because, you know, had someone not done this, it could have been used in a different way, in a more public way, like on our public models or something, right? So it's wonderful for us to harden our security and to make sure that, you know, we have so many different new validation mechanisms that we just would not have thought of had it not been for some of these exploits. You know, to the point where like our token verification system from the engine has, I think, 6 different underlying libraries that all have to communicate with each other and have cross validation with each other before you can know that, yes, this token is one that was actually produced by this particular engine for this particular model. But yeah, you know, DDoS attacks and, you know, people trying to sort of social engineer us to get like to remove balance from people's accounts.
Yeah.
Not even like high tech solutions. Just, yeah, people trying to get us to expose source code. It's just, yeah, it's a lot, but it's great because we're making it the most. And this is all, by the way, like 99% of these problems, just as far as like software goes, don't really exist in TEE because of like the encrypted file system and the signed images and all this kind of stuff. But for the sort of untrusted infrastructure, that has been hardened quite a bit, and there's still, you know, room to improve. But yeah, it's been very helpful for us.
Yeah, fully agree. I have a bizarre appreciation for the exploiters. Like I think the ingenuity is incredible, and I get their angle for sure. It can be frustrating from a customer service point of view, and like John said, the social engineering is amusing. I've dealt with some of that where they've gotten pretty close before you're like, oh wait, hold on, what's going on here? So, but we're really good. We've gotten really locked down into our standards, like you said, and security is as heavy as it can be and is constantly evolving and so in that way, like, yeah, it can be a little frustrating, but it's actually, like John said, just good all around to make us that much harder. So yeah.
Of the
But
of
yeah.
the of the subnets up here, right? So Affine, you stopped sharing. But Affine miners, they host models. We inference the network. But of the others here, like what are all the ways that these subnets use Chutes? So like they inference you guys, they host models.
Right. So yeah, hold on. V's gonna pop it back up just one second, but there it goes. Okay, yeah, right. So each one has. Oh, there we go. Hold on. Okay. Right. So I mean, they each do different things, obviously, and they're all using it in different ways. Some of the newer ones, I'm just learning kind of their full purpose. But so Numinous is using inference for predictions for prediction modeling. Trishul and Aurelius are both model alignment subnets. So what they're doing a mix. I've had a little less interaction directly with Aurelius, so I can't speak to their in the moment what they're doing specifically. Trishul I've been working with a lot, so I can kind of speak more to them. They have been using public models that we currently publicly host to sort of pressure test by hitting them with attempts at malicious prompts to get them to react incorrectly to blackmail or provide results that they shouldn't do, like things where it's malicious or problematic, so that they can then tune those models to be less likely to do those kinds of things. So that's their whole objective. And so they've got a handful of models that they've been testing that on. And then their intention soon, I think, is that they'll start actually deploying private models of publicly available open source ones to continue that objective of testing them. Platform, like I said, is one that we just recently started working with. They're using miners to develop open source software, and kind of their miners currently are helping to build out their subnet as it is, and then evolve that. So that was very interesting. Speaking with their owner the other day. So it's a variety. They use this. I mean, because you can get either inference or a private Chute. I would say the majority at this moment are using inference, but some, like I said, are moving towards private Chutes for ease, and some, like in the case of Affine or Score, it's utterly required. So, yep. I hope that answers your question there. And let me see. We're gonna
sure. And I understand also, like, a lot of this is revenue too. Going back to the previous slide, and let's go to the attractions in a second. But Affine provides what 10% of Chutes revenue.
Oh, for sure. And the in general Bittensor ecosystem is a large portion of revenue. Absolutely. Outside of Bittensor, it's nice, and like I said, we are trying to expand that as much as possible. But at the same time, I love and we love any kind of inter-Bittensor projects that we can get involved in. Anytime we can work with another subnet, it's one of my favorite things to do, is get to know them, get to talk to them, get an idea of what they're doing, and see any way we can help them work together. And like you said, just in the ecosystem working together as a big functional group, they power us, we power them, and it all leads to growth, and it's just a wonderful situation that we have going. So yeah, and honestly, we just hope to propel
and
it
it's
more.
not. It's not Ouroboros, like it's not the snake eating its own tail here. That this is, it's actually about keeping value inside of this shared corporation that we all live in, right? We all breathe Tau. So when we use inference on Chutes, our outflow becomes your inflow, which stays inside Tau, right? If there's any excess there, that excess is locked inside of the Tau token. And like that's my vision for how this really works, if for a lot of reasons, but also just about purely economics, why that's better for Bittensor. Okay, the attractions.
Right. So right. So right. And so the next part is some attractions. So what I want to do here, actually, I'm going to tap Fast Hardener down there, Florian, and I'd like him to take over here because he's got some amazing stuff that he's been working on. And also when it comes to revenue and stuff, he's got some metrics he's pulled that are just fascinating. So I'll let him take the stage, and I'm going to
Okay, I don't care. I'm just showing my face, it's just like what I like to do. Yeah, I think this diagram, I just wanted to show it off once more. I posted it on Twitter, and I think it's kind of amazing if you look at that. that's kind of the million daily tokens served per million US dollar valuation or market cap. Like if you compare Chutes to like other players, I mean, some of those are just like doing a lot of inference outside of OpenRouter, but also like kind of OpenRouter is one of the biggest marketplaces for inference. So kind of some of those are mostly doing their business there. And also I have to say like also Chutes is only doing 20% of its like market on OpenRouter. It's like 80% on Chutes. So if you look at that crazy difference, like Chutes is just serving AI models, and it's just so undervalued. And this is in a market that is supposed to grow from like 76 billion to like, I don't know, 254 billion in the next couple of years. So I don't know. I think Chutes is in a pretty good place actually. All right. And yeah, I just want to show a couple of things we've been working on. We've done a couple of improvements internally to get like to more quality and more effectiveness. So for example, this is like just an internal tool. We've built a lot of tests, to test our large language models. So for example, this is Kimi K2.5 being tested by like, I don't know, a lot of different tests, so that we can just like make sure the models we are offering are like working, and they working in all of the different ways that large language models are being used. So that's kind of
So what's an example of something that's being tested there? Like benchmark?
Yeah, I mean, let's say all the different typical ways to approach a model is like a simple chat request, like you do it from subnet 120, but there's also tool calling requests or like JSON response requests. There is streaming mode and non-streaming mode. There's reasoning turned on, reasoning turned off, tool choice parameters. There's lots of different ways you can like kind of approach a model, and it's not like, I mean, people always think, okay, there's a new model out there and it's just working. I mean, many of these benchmarks are kind of complicated to implement because they require, let's say, a complete computer or like a I don't know, virtual machine being set up, sometimes with a lot of tools and browsers and files and databases, whatever. So we started to kind of implement a benchmark runner. And I know like const.u, like subnet 120 is now using it a lot. So the details of well-known benchmarks, how a model performed. We've got
This means that also you can run this internally, and so that when we go to Chutes.ai, you'll be able to see all of the stats, everything that you would want to know about a model, how well it performs, how you use it. And I don't think there's other providers that have that. So and in additionally, you can run benchmarks all in one place.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you look at that, it's pretty hard to run them. These boxes here, that's like individual computers basically being needed, is like, I think 50 computers running in parallel at the moment to just run all of these benchmarks. 60 running runs. I don't know. And kind of when we implemented that, it also led to, I don't know, some infrastructure being needed to be invented, kind of, because we need like sandboxes for these benchmark sandboxes. And I actually I started with a library from uconst, like quicksand, and then just grew it on top of it. So I kind of have a service now. It's kind of sandbox as a service and agents as a service in these sandboxes. So this is probably, we don't know for sure yet, it's probably going to be, I don't know, a product or something in the future. But what I can say for sure is that Chutes is kind of planning to extend from a miner providing a GPU machine into a miner providing a CPU-based machine without having a heavy graphics card. And this would open up so much kind of basically when you have a computer running in the internet and everything is like encrypted and secure, you can do basically everything that Amazon Web Services does, or like Microsoft Azure. So yeah, this one is just like an example of one of those kind of agents as a service. So once you've got this infrastructure running, when you've got this infrastructure running, then you can kind of create an agent as a service. Some of the applications are very simple to implement. Like, for example, this is a thing we will probably share with our users soon. It's like a knowledge base kind of agent that helps you to research problems. When you're, for example, when you're trying to serve a model on Chutes, like miners are having problems that are leading to a lot of customer support effort on our side. And now this agent is actually, it's not like the typical customer support agent you would imagine that just like sucks and it can't help. It's actually really competent. If you click once more, Chris, it would actually start playing, I guess.
Just to speak up from the customer support side of things here, this is something we're very excited about because this is just being that much extra help to miners. I mean, from cross-subnet miners deploying Chutes, this tool is amazing in regards to helping you troubleshoot what's wrong with your definition or what's wrong with when you're trying to build an image or when you're trying to deploy, whether you have bad args, any kind of things like that. And it can help you figure that out ahead of time so you don't waste a bunch of time warming up a Chute that won't fire. So this is awesome. We're a big fan of this one. Looking forward to it.
But yeah, this is actually the biggest thing, I guess. I would like to announce. The idea is basically Chutes has already kind of solved running models. It's working quite well, but the next stage would be kind of, we could try to solve serving intelligence itself. Like, so the idea is basically we've got the inference layer running now, but the next idea and the much more like important thing would be actually aligning well with the Bittensor idea, like serving intelligence to the people. And that's what Chutes trying to work on next. It's like the next evolution on Chutes.
Let me break this part. So what you're saying is that Chutes is also going to be the provider of VPNs from CPUs to GPUs.
Both, basically, yeah. I mean, providing both GPU machines and CPU machines.
Right. So you guys are going to, and is this going to be a side incentive mechanism of Chutes, or another subnet, or a subnet? How is that going to play alongside? And why the strategic decision?
Well, John, what would you say on that? I would say it's just like the next logical step. I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that Chutes is a LLM provider, right? So if you go, for example, to chatgpt.com or Claude.ai or whatever, you're not just chatting with a model, right? You're like, especially with OpenAI's case, they've actually announced what they're doing, which is that they have different tiers of models and they route and they can do different things based on the request at the time, and you can switch between high reasoning and low reasoning and all this kind of stuff. And there are also sort of real world constraints on certain things, like OpenAI, Claude. They will remember you. They'll remember your stylistic preferences. They'll start building a recollection of the different projects you're working on. They will be able to call image models or whatever the case may be, just depending on your interactions with this AI. So very much the case is that most of these providers now aren't actually just serving a model. They're serving sort of like an intelligence layer across several models. And Chutes needs to do the same thing, if for no other reason than just having, chat.chutes.ai be a much better product. Because right now you go to chat.chutes.ai, you have to go, manually select the model that you want to use. If you want to upload an image, it's like one set of toggles. If you want to generate an image, you have to explicitly define that that's what you want to do. There is some memory built into it, but it's it's sort of like the basic table stakes for memory. It's not really optimized in any particular way. And so what we're trying to do is we have this giant assortment of models that are really good at certain things, and they don't always have perfect uptime. Like we said before, there's capacity constraints at times until miners can scale up particular models and things of this sort. So what we really need to build is sort of that in between where we have like the raw model, but now we need to coordinate a dozen different image models. Maybe we have some that are good for cartoon anime stuff, or maybe some are good for hyper realistic photo quality images. We have different LLMs for tool calling versus creative stuff for roleplay chat. And so we just need to build into our product, for our everyday users, just a better use of what we already provide. And we don't think that, our team here that you see, we don't think that we're the best developers on the planet. And so we want to allow other people to help us build that, right? So making use of all the stuff that we already have. There will be competitions, there will be rewards, but also we just get a much better product with, model selection and failover and all this kind of stuff, in ways that we would have never thought to do had it not been for a competition. That's sort of my thinking on it anyway.
So what would these competitions be, as an example? Competition for generating code?
Well, no, I don't know that we want to have... let's just do one example, like a memory subsystem, right? Memory branching, memory subsystem. How do you replace old information with new? How do you consolidate things? Like if you could just go to any AI chat, it has some memory. But if you say like, today, if I say, I drive a blue car, and then tomorrow I say, I drive a red car, those are both memories. Which one is true? Do you just do the date? What if tomorrow I say I used to drive a red car? Like, there's so many aspects of something called memory, right? Short-term memory, long-term memory. How do you purge things? How do you keep the context small so you don't have the lost in the middle problem? So I don't want to say that it's going to be like solving coding. Ridges does that, right? We don't need to solve every specific class of usage. I think for us, it's more about the fundamentals of if you just wanted to hit OpenAI, it may internally use a bunch of sandboxes and run code and do all kinds of stuff. We want to basically have that same type of experience by building out a single unified interface that is, an OpenAI API compatible Chutes API, but that internally can now go to this memory tool subsystem where we may have a competition defined for that. And it may have just a simple model router competition. We may have, something there. May have go ahead.
And so one of the things that I think a lot of subnets need, right, aside from just inference, is the container, where they're don't give me a model running on Chutes, but give me a full system with memory and storage and context management, an agent. Right, there's a number of subnets that are doing that, Bitsec, Numinous, et cetera, et cetera. Does this mean that they'll be able to run those full agentic workloads on Chutes?
Yeah, the CPU only stuff that we're going to be doing has it will have persistent volumes. It'll have real time replication, hot migrations. It'll have access to these internal tools that we build, memory subsystems. All of that. So I don't know if you recall Squad that we built. That was one of the first things we talked about, actually. Squad had most of this functionality built into it. It had headless browsers. It had the memory system. It had sort of codeless functions you could just drag and drop in. You could just drop in an image model and all this kind of stuff. So Squad was like a very early attempt at doing this, but what we missed there was incentive. There was no incentive to do well on Squad. And so it just didn't get the usage that it probably should have. And we sort of neglected it as a result because we didn't get the adoption that we were hoping for. And so, the world runs on incentives. And so, that's what we were missing. But so that was like an early prototype of this. But fundamentally, Chutes will be providing that infrastructure to do anything, right?
Wow, cool.
Yeah, maybe things will get clearer if we go to the next slide, because we're gonna explain much more in detail what this could look like, like, for example, like our intelligence competition, it could lead to an application that is kind of a chat application, like from ChatGPT or whatever. But just it's gonna be just more powerful. I will say that because I've already experimented with that, and it's like already doing more than ChatGPT would do. And if you go to the next slide, like another thing it could do, the same intelligence engine we are building, it could, for example, power something that is looking like Perplexity, like a web search based on intelligence, based on AI. And by the way, this is just gonna be released today. If you go to the next slide, Chris, so there's a new domain, chutes-search.com. Try it out. It's available right now. It's kind of, we will open source it in the next couple of days. It's just really nicely priced, like everything on Chutes. You just basically sign in with your Chutes account, and you only pay your inference cost. Everything else is covered by us, like the infrastructure and stuff. And it's kind of working nice, and it's kind of fast. You can just try it out. So it's kind of a Perplexity clone. And yeah, that's not all. Like if you go to the next slide, basically we just open it up as an API as well. So whatever app you're building and you want like a really strong multimodal and agentic endpoint that you can send things to, you can just use our endpoint there. It's gonna be released soon, and what you get back is basically whatever you need. Like when you want to generate images, you will get that. If you want to kind of do I don't know, you generate a web app and you want it being served online, you will probably get that. So it's going to be a very versatile agent kind of endpoint, and it's just using the same API norms that people are used to, like the OpenAI and Anthropic API standards. Yeah, so that's kind of the next thing we're working on, and the idea is it's not us building us. The cool thing about it would be, if you go to the next slide, the idea is we are kind of like, we are open sourcing our first implementation of this. And then basically the user uses something, it's like the chat user interface or whatever, or the agent app or whatever. And the gateway will just like forward it to the best competitor, like the best miner currently in the leaderboard. And this will lead to the results. So everything is forced to be open source. So whenever a miner it manages to improve on that, the miner will get some rewards. So we hope this is incentive enough to just like have constant iteration, improvement. And we think we probably may even outpace like the closed source labs, because this is just like, it's going to be really easy to improve on something that is already there. Yeah, that's the idea. And if you go to the next slide, Chris, So the idea is basically, now this would need to be full screen because it's really small. I don't know how to do that. Anyhow, so the idea is just like, yeah, basically there is a number one and it's open source, so everybody can just improve on top of it. And if you manage to improve enough that it's becoming a new number one, you will get the rewards, and then basically you're the new number one.
So in addition to you guys
and-
having,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, John.
So I was just going to chime in here. One of the things we did with Squad, and we will do here as well, is that we want to integrate with the commodities that all of the other subnets provide, right? So we're not going to go build an X scraper. We're going to go use one that already exists, right? But maybe someone builds a better way to have the queries structured to actually go to that thing to get the relevant results, right? So just like we did with Squad, like whatever commodity you have as a builder on Bittensor, we would like that to become, accessible tools for people to be able to drop in and use. And, one of the things we want to do is structure the rewards such that an agent doesn't just win everything. It would be split between the tools and the components that are actually used. And maybe the reward is largely revenue based, right? So the revenue that this product drives would go back directly. Obviously, we would have to pay for the usage for the commodities on the other subnets, but you could basically claim royalties, let's say, for having built the best tool that is part of the best agent that happens to be used on chat.chutes.ai, right?
Wow. And these are all living on the same ecosystem, connectable through each other. Like it sounds like you're trying to solve a problem, because I talk to teams all the time. I'm like, okay, what's the format that for your agent? Okay, it's GitHub. We commit it to chain. We use Hugging Face or something like this. Or, but now they can go and create those agents as agents on Chutes, and they're fully containerized. Hey, we have this much compute, we have access to this, and then again, the subnet can have the miners pay for it, but they can build fully functional software. So there'll be a variety of incentive mechanisms that push themselves onto this agentic layer, and not just like what Affine is doing for models, but for all the subnets that are focusing on agents.
Yep, exactly. So these will be CPU only, or I'm sorry, TEE only, including AMD and TDX, and we'll have cosine signed images and attested workloads. And at any point, like one of the things we want to build is a webhook system where when a node comes online to do whatever your workload is, it will actually send the quote, which is like the measurements and assigned thing from the hardware. So you can actually check that attestation yourself. You can check the actual image hash and the TEE stuff. And then at that point, if you decide that it's valid, so like we're going to do validation no matter what as the validator, but we also want the customer to be able to do the validation themselves externally. So we're going to add a system there where like you're in control of your own validation as well to an extent. And then, for example, if you wanted to do secrets or passwords or API keys or whatever, you could actually pass that back as part of your own validation flow, with a key exchange at that time, that sort of stuff. So it would be totally transparent and invisible. Like Chutes would never see it. Our validator would have no knowledge of it. Yeah.
Oh, this is huge. I mean, as a builder in the ecosystem, this is fantastic, because like one of the problems that we always have is the one I was mentioning. It's like, where do you put the agent? Who runs the agent? Okay, we have inference. We can get the miners to pay for the inference, but here we can get the miners to pay for the agents. We have a TEE structure for them. It's all solved for subnet builders. So maybe there's another 10 subnets that integrate here with Chutes along this dimension, and then they're all living together. They can communicate with each other. They're all under various incentive mechanisms. The recursion is getting out of control, isn't it, John?
Yes, we're trying to bring as many fractals into Bittensor as we possibly can.
Collapsing and wow. Okay, well, I'll let you guys continue with your slides here. Do you have more? It's been a long. Yeah, we do. Okay.
Yeah, let's go to the next slide. So yeah, this is kind of the idea with this. I don't know. We don't have a name. We call it intelligence arena or competition or whatever. So please wait a couple of more, I don't know, days or weeks, and then it's gonna be publicly, I don't know, revealed. But one more thing, just one last more thing. And that's kind of we want to announce a research collaboration, and that's like a big one. Kind of it's Harvard University and Chutes basically. It's like we've got a really cool researcher guy from Harvard reaching out with his team, and he's an expert, like world class expert on large language model performance stuff and everything, and we're kind of working together with him. And that's kind of cool, I think. I mean, it's Bittensor, and it used to be kind of like, I don't know, niche or something, but it's Harvard University. You know, this is really cool. So yeah, that's the last thing from my slide deck. And
One note on that, Florian, too, is you know, Const, you have been quite adamant about the caching, the prefix caching, and this is exactly what that is.
Oh yes.
And so the latest message we got from them, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about here, they said that for their new prefix cache algorithm with a concurrency of 8 and a cache size of 160,000 tokens, they were able to get 60% compute savings.
From platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
From this new caching. Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff that we're going to be bringing into Chutes to, you know, continue to increase performance, drive down cost. And yeah, it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a collaboration. Like they are happy for having like access to this Chutes data, and like we get the implementation for free. Basically, we've got a team of world-class researchers working on our implementation. That's just so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, what the data that we have like a 70-page slide from them actually with the initial research they did, but it's actually interesting. Anyone, if you go into our API, you can go to the, you know, api.chutes.ai/docs, and you can find some endpoints in there. And, you know, for our validation purposes, like with the auditing system, we publish every single invocation and all the metrics for every single request. So you have, like, for every request that ever happens on Chutes, you have total tokens, input tokens, output tokens, time to first token, total time, you know, the model ID. You have information that can basically allow you to track like flows. And so from all of this sort of anonymous, just metric data, they were able to do like insane research on Chutes, you know, and they did it just, yeah, for free, which was awesome. And now we're going to actually try to help them in rolling out their optimized caching algorithm to Chutes, and we can actually get real world performance from, you know, massive amounts of usage.
Wow. Damn. Okay, we go more.
Yeah, I don't know, how much time do we have? We could talk until next Thursday, probably.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to say. I really shouldn't derail things. I just love how so like there's not any explicit incentives with inside Bittensor for teams to collaborate. It's just epiphenomenal. It's just good to collaborate. There's an intrinsic motivation to collaborate and build tools for each other inside of the ecosystem, and like I think that Chutes really is like the team that has done that the most and the best. And yeah, like this is like this change that you guys just promoted, which or just presented, which is fantastic and really exciting. Perfect example of that, like going to build a layer around, you know, how the miners can contribute, can commit changes, commit agents. It's going to be a game changer, revolutionary for more connectivity in Bittensor. But wait, there's more. Okay.
So obviously we rolled out our trusted execution environment in December. I think we've all heard a lot about TE from other subnets and other providers, so I'm not going to like go too deep into the details of TEE, but I think we did it something that's maybe a little bit novel that I kind of want to cover and why we did it. So obviously, just like everything else with us, our TE stuff is all open source in that SEK8 repo. So we had two main motivations for this. So the first one is just for the broader decentralized ecosystem, anything blockchain related. Trust is obviously probably one of the biggest kickbacks that I think you hear about. And so we wanted to build our TE in a way where it allows a true trustless relationship. And so TE by itself is very good at providing trustless infrastructure, right? Like I can prove that the VM that's running on this bare metal server somewhere is secure. But there's still a trust component with the service provider, right? So like really all the TE does is kind of like a birth certificate for that VM. Where is it running? What environment is it running in? How is it launched? It doesn't tell you like what's running in it though. And so by open sourcing this, we can address the other side and basically allow you to do a full audit of the actual what's in the VM. So we have a little bit of ways to go with that, but that SEK8 repo, as we decouple it, is meant to kind of be a baseline. So like any subnet or basically anything decentralized, we want to provide that as a way where they can go use that as kind of a starting point to implement TE for themselves. And so then you can run whatever workloads you want. And then like John said, we're exposing a mechanism where you can build the VM yourself and verify these are the actual measurements. So like you built it yourself, you know exactly what went into it. And then you'll be able to extract the quotes that you need, and you'll be able to then query our services and see that it is exactly the same thing functionally that was built. Right. So like, and part of that to make this really trustless is that Chutes shouldn't be able to access or do anything within that VM. We shouldn't be able to extract payloads. The miners shouldn't be able to, right? So like we don't have any SSH into those VMs. We don't have any logging from prompts or anything like that. And all of those things are things that we've built into that solution.
But are you saying that it's like a zero knowledge proof? So you're like, I'm going to run this payload. You're going to replicate it in the TE, and then that's trustworthy. Is that how that works?
Sorry, say that again.
So you're just so I understand. So I want to run some workload, some Python package. Okay, there's no ZK proof for it, but I want a proof that it ran this particular way. I'm going to use Chutes. Chutes is going to create a TE, run it inside the TE, and then get a proof for me. Is that correct?
Yes. So okay. So like just TE by itself, right, without the open source aspect of this, says that I can submit this payload. It can go run in this VM, and I know that that VM is secure from the host. Right. So that, for decentralized infrastructure, I don't care where the node is running because theoretically the host can't access or do anything to my payload running that VM. But if I don't know the service provider that's managing that VM, like who started it, you can still have SSH access into a TE VM, right? And so I could still theoretically see what you're doing. Just because it's running in TE doesn't stop that. So you need a way to verify the what is running. So we will give you a way to verify the whole VM. Like you'll be able to prove that there's no SSH access. You'll be able to prove kind of what gets logged, the whole payload and the whole workload, the whole environment. It's not even just your workload. You'll be able to prove the entire environment that it's running in, the OS, what's in the OS, all of it.
It's not quite, to your point though, it's not quite like a ZK proof because those circuits are still going to be like millions of orders of magnitude too difficult for things like LLM serving and stuff like that. But it at least gives you, especially if we do this remote attestation stuff for when the pod starts up and you can have it post back the attestation stuff to you directly. You can build whatever you wanted in there, but it's not going to be like taking all of your code and building a circuit and then doing like a ZK proof in that respect. But it is proving signed images, which is the integrity of the Docker container or whatever the case may be there. You can actually reproduce, to Kyle's point, you can go build our VM yourself and pass the measurements, meaning the exact apt packages and everything else that's in there. So we haven't tampered with the VM, because the only way for the VM to pass the attestation is for that runtime measurement and whatever the manifest is that we do the quote for that to match. We couldn't have tampered with it, and so it's like a hardware based proof, but not quite to the level of like what you're saying with code, proving in a circuit.
Understood.
So I
Please
think
go on.
the one thing that would probably pair with that is what this really does enable is that true end-to-end encryption, which, John, I'll kind of let you talk about that since you have a good understanding of exactly what that would look like and what it really entails and why TE is required for it. Did I lose John?
John, end-to-end encryption question. Maybe you can just take it.
Yep, sorry, I lost my mute button there. Yeah, so one of the things that we see right now is like we do have encryption, right? Everything is TLS to the load balancers and then TLS to our API servers. Our API servers are all open source. People can check our code and see that we're not logging prompts or anything like that. And then from there, it goes AES 256 to the miners. But what people still complain about, and rightly so, is that Chutes, our team, could theoretically intercept the payloads in the load balancer or something like that and see your data, right? And what you need there is sort of client-side true end-to-end encryption, and that's one of the things I've already built all of the the code infrastructure for it. We just don't have it rolled out yet. Where in TEE nodes, they will create ephemeral certs, like a key pair, basically. They will register those with the validator, and then a client will be able to query for a given chute a list of instances. From there, with all the work Kyle has done to expose the TEE attestations, they can actually go verify for themselves all of the quotes, and then they can take one of those, equivalent of a public key, basically, and do they can encrypt client side their payload, and it will be sent to us encrypted. We won't ever be able to see anything. There are a couple caveats, like we have to see which model they want to go to know where to route it, and we have to know the user so we can bill them, and we have to know the usage, like how much actual token usage or whatever they used. But from there, it passes through us directly to the TEE node, where that cert is only ever in memory, which is in turn, encrypted on a TEE VM. So even root access to the box doesn't matter. You won't be able to get the cert. And we're using, like modern quantum resistant algorithms for all this kind of stuff, all of this. And then along with your request as a client, you can send your public key, basically, so that the TEE node, when it sends a response, will have encrypted the response only to you, right? So at that point, it will be full end-to-end encryption. No one on planet Earth will ever have the ability to see whatever you sent and what the response was. And that will.
And so what this means for Chutes, right? So like when you put this all together, right? So you have LLM inference in TE, you have agents running in TE, and people can generate their own. So with this cryptography, you're building like an entire inference compute agentic stack that it's 100% private, guaranteed, miners all across the globe contributing compute from anywhere with stranded energy resources, and the entire world of intelligence runs on Chutes. Right?
That's the idea, yeah. And for example, with end-to-end encryption, let's say I wanted to build an agent that actually did financial transactions. Well, as much as I trust the Chutes team to not intercept my data, or my credit card number, my key for a crypto wallet, something like that, I'm not going to do it, right? With end-to-end encryption in a TEE environment with your own attestation of the pod before it ever starts up, so you can verify for yourself. You could then run, financial agents pass that secret over securely through this end-to-end encryption thing inside a TEE node that you've attested yourself and verified. And you can be, maybe that's what we do when we actually release this thing. Maybe we go put, a bunch of money in a wallet and run it and see if someone from Affine can exploit it.
Oh, they will probably. This is the next level.
That would be a cool way to do it, right? Like it's a good way to test it because there's actually money on the line. If you can actually decrypt this payload and figure out how to do it, you get to keep the wallet. That's the level of trust that I want to build into this, where I could put, $1 million Tau wallet into our system and trust that no one's ever going to get it. That's what we're trying to get to. And the payloads don't have to be sensitive like that. They could just be, that it may not be financial at all. Maybe it's your medical records, right? There's all sorts of reasons why you would want secure environments that no one can ever see. If you want to, chat about a private medical issue, you don't want OpenAI to leak that in court filings because they're getting sued, right? We want to make sure that we can't expose that even if we get told to.
I'll tell you, I definitely won't be trusting any trusted execution environments unless Affine miners have been trying to break them. I mean, exactly. Unless there's Affine miners trying to break those TEEs, there's just really there's no trust there at all. The only thing I can think
any other way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All things derive from Affine miners. Inversely, right? Trust is inversely created by malincentive, right? Where people are incentivized to break, and then once they can't, there really is trustworthy. Wow, John. Is this the end of the presentation? Because I know we could keep on going forever, but holy shit, how many more things do we got?
It's like 3 more actually. We're almost done.
I mean, it just keeps getting better, but let's keep on going.
More, yeah.
We've still got the audience. I'm not there yet. I'm not ready to say it's been scintillating. So give us some more.
Yeah. Okay. Hey guys, Vate here. I'm coming through Algowary's machine. I'll make it pretty quick. But one of the biggest things, of course, for running a sweet inference platform is we want people to be able to use it. So we've put a big focus and have had our guys pretty much just trying to figure out ways to make it easier for people to develop with Chutes. So some of the major kind of breakthroughs that we've made through lately is we have a sweet N8N community node that essentially has the ability to run through not only just typical LLM stuff, but has been robustly built out to be able to support every single aspect offered from any models on Chutes. This is just a little mini demo just going over the LLM generation, but just essentially making sure that we are present in one of the most, foremost and used agent building platforms. So that was one of the first places that we wanted to be.
Major credit to Ed Von Kaiser. He's hanging out in the comments right now. He basically built that almost entirely by himself and is a machine. So just wanted to give him credit.
Yeah, and same thing. Just going back and speaking upon the the Claude code and the GPT Codex proxy, essentially enabling anybody with a Chute subscription to be able to hook in Chutes into these. Supposed to be you're supposed to be using Claude, you're supposed to be using GPT, unless you want to use Chutes. So now, kind of breaking into that ecosystem. And furthermore, integrating with the Vercel AI package. The Vercel AI package is one of the most popular downloaded packages for people to be able to easily integrate AI into React or, of course, Next apps. Again, just taking away one more layer of friction. And so this goes great hand in hand with the sign-in with Chutes. I know we've talked about it a little bit so far. But the sign-in with Chutes mechanism just makes it literally fun to just come up with some sort of idea that, man, I wish I could have, a bot that will or even a site. I want a site where people can generate, different images and then maybe even share those images, or maybe it's, surrounding specific contest, whatever it may be. It becomes this one-stop shop for authentication, for the app itself, as well as bringing the power of the inference, whether it's image, LLM, video, audio, the whole nine, brings it right into the app. Super smooth integration. We have our repo specifically for sign-in with Chutes, and that repo is designed to be not only a super easy way for developers to onboard their app, but there's even vibe code documentation that you can just share the markdown literally with your agent to start integrating the sign-in with Chutes right into your app. And then something that I've been very excited about, and this is the first time we're talking about it here, but we are going to be, we have been trying to fight the good fight. Everybody on the internet, I'm sure most of you have heard about the Claudebot, aka Moltbot, aka OpenClaw, that has taken the internet by storm in the past week or so. And we were trying to get our Chutes in as a provider super early, but they got an unbelievable amount of pull requests, essentially saying no to everybody. So we just decided, all right, we're going to make our own little kind of roundabout way to be able to onboard users. So this is Paracloth. So this is just going to be an init script that we are going to host that is essentially a all-in-one package that anybody could run locally on their machine, whether they have OpenClaw installed or not, and we'll set up Chutes as the main model provider, set up the whole Chutes model ecosystem to be able to go through any of the Chutes models to then power immediately your OpenClaw. And it's been phenomenal. I have not used anything but Chutes on my bots so far. And so what this is all makes it also special is, again, utilizing TEE for an agent system like this only just makes it an even more personable experience, where people are going to be able to feel more comfortable doing more advanced things, whether it's transactions or personal things with their agents, because you're going to be able to not have to rely on the open AIs and the Anthropics, but be able to have the full power of Chutes behind the your bot in the ecosystem.
And of course,
so we're gonna be dropping that soon.
OpenClaw is just an agent, so you'll be able to just run that on Chutes too. So one click deploy full.
Oh yeah. It's going to be a very
Alpha's
agent
running
2026 for Chutes. It's a beautiful thing, and the CPU nodes are going to just make it even slicker. It is going to be super duper cool.
Oh, yep. And Ben, if you could, hold on.
Yeah.
Jump over.
So, yeah, sure. So this is a new product we released, just to give a bit of an explanation on why we would do this. On Open Router and kind of just inference in general, you have, for places like Chutes and Open Router, at least, you have basically two types of users. You have users who are coding, who are putting it in agents or their applications. And then you have users who are doing, like entertainment. And so you see companies like Character AI and other big companies like that focusing on that. The Minimax model that was recently released was for, role play and everything like that. So it's a major part of inference. And even on Open Router, depending on the model, it's between 40 to 50% of all the inference is for powering these types of apps. The big problem with those apps, though, is that they don't have compute. So most of these apps that create like role play or character experiences, they don't have the compute to back that. And the issue there is that they have to use bring your own API key or connect it to this integration. And as a result, they can't really justify charging money to people to add better features to their site. So what we see is a lot of character and role play platforms that are pretty simplistic. They don't use a lot of the different features that we could use with Chutes, and they don't use a lot of the infrastructure that they could if they could actually make money. With Chutes, this is you plug in your Chutes account, you connect with Chutes, and it's just going to the Chutes infrastructure. We've already solved that issue. So what we can do is just focus on making it a better product than what other people can do, without having to worry about, like setting up all this different compute. We can start doing things like more advanced context management, RAG systems, and vector searching for various things to bring into your chats. That's going pretty well right now. There's some good usage on it, and we're continuing to build that out, just giving people more opportunity to use their Chutes subscription, especially on our platform.
And again, so like it's just patently easy for a subnet to pop up here and be like, well, we're going to incentivize character agents. Here's the format. It's running on Chutes, standardized, TE, easy as hell. It's got all these features. Now go out and figure it out how you can do it better. Here's how we evaluate that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, and Complex, I don't know if you want to mention just like the traction within these existing communities and like how many people you personally basically have been able to pull over, and we get like mod carryover and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's
so especially
app,
like
he's like playing it light, but it's actually kind of a bit of a movement in the RP scene. So don't undersell yourself or underplay it, I should say.
Yeah, I think especially with more features that we're adding to it, we'll be able to give an experience that other sites can't provide. And since we're not looking to maximize revenue with this service, but rather maximize what you can do with Chutes, it allows us to actually focus on making the experience better, not just worrying about how are we going to make this work. And so I think that's like a really strong thing that not a lot of products get to do. A lot of them really have to worry about, like we can't charge users $4 if we have to make them go for compute with some other company. And then you see companies, they'll charge a subscription and they'll give terrible compute. And so they'll give you like a crappy model for $6 a month. And the website itself doesn't really offer much. You're essentially just paying for an abstraction of Chutes or another inference provider.
These could be characters in games. These could be, I don't personally talk to AIs like this, but these could be characters in games. These could be, companions. These are companions, correct?
Yeah, so we haven't made like a huge dedicated companion thing yet, like you would see with like the Grok one, for instance, where you level it up and everything like that. But since we have the infrastructure to start doing, stuff like that requires you to have a lot of storage and memories that the users created with that character and the ability to retrieve that. That of course is expensive. You have to have vector databases to be able to search through. You need to create some sort of RAG system and be able to inject that into the LLM context. And all of that is something that we can do with Chutes technology without needing to, try and justify that. Fictio is available right now, just to say.
Did Character AI, when that existed, I mean, I think it got bought by Google, right? Was that running on trusted execution environments?
So I think Character AI provided a lot of their own infrastructure, and they did train their own models, which is kind of like their selling point and how they got acquired was the infrastructure they put around it. I don't think it was trusted execution though. And same thing with your chat content and everything like that. The way that we're trying to do Fictio is we want to make it as private as possible. So all of your chats, all of your interactions should be something that only you can see. And isn't something that another website can see. OpenAI, ChatGPT, Character AI, they can all read what you're doing, read what you're saying. And some people use AI in ways that really there's no business for someone else to read that chat. People tell AI very personal things, even, maybe they shouldn't do that, but they do. And so keeping that data secure is pretty important. And so that's kind of the goal with tying Fictio into TE and the end-to-end encryption, is to just try and make it so you have the most secure platform for your character roleplay.
I just want to speak a little bit too from a customer service perspective on this product, because Complex has been putting a ton of work into it. But help a lot of these folks out when they have connection issues and whatnot, with specifically with a lot of these other character-based products. And I'll just say that we've had a lot of great experience with people moving from one to Fictio because of how easy it is to work with, and also just in generally speaking, how open he is to suggestions and updates and changes and stuff, that a lot of the community is able to kind of, they find a lot of resistance with other products where they hit walls and come up against issues that are frustrating, and Complex has been working really, really hard to reduce those issues and make it as accessible and open to all of the different requirements a lot of these folks have in that realm. So it's just been really good, and we've seen a lot of very positive responses there and adoption. So just want to give him a pat on the back because he's killing it.
Hell yeah. Wow. I just signed up right now. It was very easy. Cool. I now have a AI companion as well.
Don't be weird.
Don't be weird.
Oh my gosh.
Her name is Abel, the caregiver. Oh my god, that's embarrassing. I just clicked on the first one.
You got to turn on
It worked.
NSFW and then go through those too.
Yeah, there needs to be some kind of animal angle too.
No,
Let's
I
get it
have a
really going.
caregiver. It's my wife. I have to go to her now. Actually,
She doesn't have a tail, then what's the point?
Wow, John, everyone, wow, incredible. So exciting. Thanks for kicking off the first Novelty Search in a little while here. 2026 is going to be the year of agents. Chutes integrated all the way down to the thermodynamic level, up to the character level. How exciting, guys. I think that's called vertical integration with incentives. Pretty fucking awesome. Let's leave it here. Thanks for everyone coming to the show, to the call, up on stage. Till next time, guys. Ciao.